Okay, so we are recording despite everything that's going on today. As always, I'm Brian Kynes, the creator of the Tales of Ulran campaign setting. We use a plethora of different types of TTRPG systems to create our own homebrew of the things that we like. We take some parts from Dungeons and Dragons, some parts from Pathfinder, some pieces of new creations that are being brought to our attention via YouTube every single day to kind of make our own Tales of Ulran system. And these folks here joining me this Sunday afternoon have helped along that journey and have been guinea pigs to see how this stuff works out, and it has been working out pretty good. I'll give them introductions here in just a minute. We're going to try to write this story one more chapter at a time today, as we usually say, but we're short a few characters. We were comparing it to, imagine if you're an author and you're getting ready to write this next section of your book. Let's say the movie Big Trouble in Little China. You're getting ready to write this big, awesome scene of that movie. And 5 minutes before you get ready to write it, you realize that Kurt Russell can't be in it, and neither can Lopan. Go ahead and go. So it's like, well, hell, what do I do now? The reason I'm jokingly bringing this up is because we've just, within the last hour or so, had two folks that's had some pretty serious stuff going on and are not able to make it tonight. So we were kind of on the fence. Do we do something? Do we not do something? And what I've got planned is going to steer off a little bit, but that's what Plan B is all about. It's all about just kind of creating and going forward and just seeing what kind of mess we can make of things, and if it's worth writing in a book when we're done. And this will be a real good stress test for that that particular escapade. So go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let's go ahead and start with Colby.
Yeah, I'm Colby, and I'll be playing Arson, who is a Draken and who has learned the truth of why he was here, and now he believes it is up to he. In order to pay back that favor, he has to go back.
Yeah, back to the cursed wood from which he came. That was interesting. It's good to finally be able to tell you parts of this. The end of last episode, we did that quite a bit. That was some good stuff. Jeremy, you're up, buddy. Go ahead.
I'm playing the part of Rook. Turn this down this way a little bit.
You're good, man.
The nether-scorned Voldros, who is finding himself probably a little uncomfortably getting closer to the Netherfell than he ever thought he would be. Still foggy on his origins. So the constant reminder that it's right there, just out of sight, kind of unnerving. But right now he's on a warpath. So
yeah, and of the warpath you've been on, though, man, Rook is being pretty cunning. Good interactions. You got some people that you're kind of bargaining with, the carving the spider on the coin and that negotiations with that woman, obviously helping cover up the incident that happened the night before. Good stuff. And we'll see how you're rewarded for said ventures. We'll see how it all goes. I wish you the best.
Hopefully it ends with me taking claim over a head.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. And it's just, but the Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. True.
It's no good. It's just no good, sir. All right. So, the last time we played, we were getting ready to leave Vander's shop, and we were going to head over to Fighting Spirits Meadery Winery. Okay. Now, I want to make sure I got that dude's name down. Where is it? It's just a second here. That's a good one. Yep, got it. Lots of NPCs. Lots of NPCs. Okay. So the conversation that had taken place was everyone kind of had their understanding of what they wanted to do next. The good news, and I spoke with Danny about this maybe just about 2-3 days ago, was that he is committed to kind of being the, I don't want to say the guardian slash escort to Azara, but he's also practicing being an arcane blade. And their job is to be the ambassador and be the protector over someone or some kind of group effort, and learn from that process. So Danny has told me, he is willing to go along with this because in following these folks and what they're going through is nothing but a learning experience for him. It's going to give him the chance to strengthen himself, and he's preparing himself for something that he hasn't revealed to you all yet. But this plays into his hand. So this helps him, and it also helps you at the same time. So having the arcane blade Finthier at your side will be very helpful. Trust me. Okay. Also, I want to make sure. Okay. As Vander was going to set up a meeting at the Fighting Spirits Meadery Winery with one of Azara's own kind. He had told her the night before, when everyone was around the fire outside the caravan, that she was not alone. Everyone had heard this. And that there's another person, actually there were sisters, that were Dar'eblan, which is a word that Azara had never really heard before. And they were alive and well in this city, and she was going to meet them. Well, she has asked for an audience. She has decided this morning is the time. So Vander says if you go over next door, she usually has lunch over there. They usually play a late night high stakes gambling game in the very top part of this winery meadery, which Colby's character has actually been to before. Merrick, the large ogre brewmaster that works there, the very well-spoken, oddly enough, brewmaster that works there, has introduced himself to you, and you know about that kind of building up in the very top level of this place. It is like a greenhouse, but in the back room of it is a wooden table where people play cards, right? So he says we go over there, and he's going to set up a meeting for this, and her name is Lydia, from what we've understood, and he is going to send her to meet Azara so they can get properly introduced. Okay? From there, it's going to be you two. Okay? As Azara says, oh, thank you very much. I'd appreciate your courtesy, and I appreciate you letting me visit with her. I hope it doesn't seem too forward of me, and I hope that it is not putting her in any kind of danger to do this, but it would be good to begin to see and meet this person and find out how she has survived and learned to make her way in the city without being known or discovered. With that, Finn walks up to her side, and he looks over at Vander kind of suspiciously. And he says in kind of a more defensive tone than you would expect him to speak to Vander in. And he says, would we have anything to fear from this Lydia? And he looks over at Azara, and you can see a bit of confusion on her face. Like, why is he asking this? And he looks over at Vander. He says, I have done a bit of my own research into this, and it only makes sense for me to take pause and have caution. And he looks at him for a long time, and he just kind of leaves that sentence hanging in the air. Okay. Vander kind of straightens up and doesn't have the normal kind of side grin on his face that he usually does from having a superior intellect and wisdom to boot, right? And he says to Finn, I don't think it would be anything that you would need to worry about unless you've had some kind of dealings or been a part of something that I'm unaware of. I will not lie. Lydia is mysterious, and her connections to the city and the people therein. I'm not privy to that information. I have just been a helpful guide to her in times from the past. To say that we owe each other favors would not be an understatement. But I cannot see or imagine there to be any fear that you should have. I can't imagine any kind of dealings that she would have partaken in that would endanger you in any way. And he looks at Finn for a long time. Jeremy, roll me your 1d20. Or no, sorry, Colby, this is for Finn. Roll me your 1d20.
I'm gonna let Azara have my shiny purple dice.
Nice.
7.
Finn and Vander share a long moment as they look at each other, trying to figure out, the motivation here. And there seems to be some kind of a stalemate. Finn's kind of looking and moving his head around and looking at him, but he just can't seem to get a read on him. And he walks over to the door, and he adjusts his sword on his side. He has a thin rapier-like blade, and he tightens up a pouch that he has on that has books in it and things of that nature. He straightens up his collar and stands by the door, and he looks over to Azara, and he politely nods down at your haste. With that, as she goes to meet him, what are the two of you doing in this moment, as it seems like the group is getting ready to head out over to the Fighting Spirits? What is Arson and Rook doing?
I would say Rook probably came in towards the end of that interaction. Because
Yes.
he did stop to have that conversation. So he probably came in a few minutes after everyone else.
Okay. And I would say you caught the butt end of Vander's reassurance.
Right.
Okay.
With no context whatsoever.
Yeah. And play on that, because that is a bit weird. You wouldn't think Finn seems to know him better than the rest of you. They have had an interaction before. You all have had an interaction. Danny has met him before with this character. There have been conversations. So there's some context here. You don't know what exactly is going on. And of the different tales you all told each other the other night in the hotel room before the surprise battle that took place, this concern of his wasn't something he brought up. And that's something to ponder as well. Okay, so we'll start with you. What are you doing in this moment? And Colby, you can jump in at any time as well too if you have a certain course of action or a question or anything you want to do here. You just let me know, okay? Because that's just the situation.
I do have a question about the previous meeting I had with the owner of that. When we went to go fight the spiders, did I bring the wine down or did I leave it on the roof?
I think you left it because of everything that kind of had happened suddenly. You didn't have a chance to bring it with you, if I remember correctly.
All right then, yeah. And he's just preparing for that situation with him.
You know what? Let's just do this. Let's roll, because I remember you were up there, you saw the gnome, you saw that stuff, And I can't remember exactly if you did pocket it or not. So let's say this. Let's say a 1 through 10 you did not. 11 through 15 you were able to get some mead, which is their medium stuff. And 11 through and 16 through 20 you were able to get one of the better bottles of wine out of there that everyone was going to share down there at that fountain as you guys were all telling each other stories. So roll me a 1d20 and tell me what you get, Colby.
Well, I also know in that session, I had since they did that to me, I had planned on giving them like one of their like a bottle of their stale beer that was left in the room.
Now I know you had that.
8.
Okay, so you did not get something finer, but you did get that one that you're talking about, the one that was kind of like the not so good. You poured, did you take a bunch of leftovers and shit and pour in one because they were
Yeah.
fucking with you somehow or something like that? So you have,
Mhm.
you might want to write a note down of that. You have the skunked wine. Got the skunk stuff. Got the stuff you took camping last year and you found it under the leaves, buddy. I've been that guy. Guarantee you all day. Put down con check 15 beside that as well. just a little note. That's all I'm saying. All right. So, Rook, as you see Arson searching through his bag and stuff, did you come up with anything you're wanting to say at this moment, or you wanting to write it out?
So he's in it kind of in a spot. So right now he's just waiting to see if the spider picks up what he's putting down. Otherwise, he really doesn't have an aim at this moment other than to stick around with the party.
Okay. Well, at this moment, this next morning, you've not seen anything yet that would depict that seed that you plant has started to grow.
Right.
From yesterday, and it's too early for that.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment,
his only other plan at that point is just keeping an eye out because we've got that bounty hunter that's out and about. We've got just a handful of troublesome people that he doesn't really trust. It's just made their presence known. So he wants to stay a little closer to Azara.
Okay.
Mostly because his concerns about Sarkhan having eyes and ears in the immediate area.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't want to stay super close to her because if something does go down, he doesn't want to wrap her up in it directly.
Well, that's
so it's
perfect.
It's
but
a
if
little
you
bit of
want
a,
to verbalize some of that with her, you know what I mean? Get her to be aware.
I don't think it's something he would bring up in front of Vander and all of that.
Okay.
Especially after he doesn't know what anybody would remember about the shop blowing up last night.
Only I will say that no one else has said a word about that.
Right. But he doesn't want to go asking questions just in case some folks are still around. Well, no, he wouldn't really remember anything of it other than like supposedly that barrel got dropped out of the ship and caused an explosion. He knows it happened. He just doesn't remember the roar that came of it or
right
like that.
Which is awesome.
So at this point, he's kind of waging a war in his own head. Like, did I have a bad dream? What happened here?
As you're having that moment and you're searching your feelings, and you're kind of looking around, you notice the upstairs looks a little different than you remember it last time you were in here, and you're having that moment, you catch yourself looking around. As you do, you catch the gaze of Vander. He's staring at you with an eyebrow half cocked, like he can smell that your gears are slipping a little bit, and he's looking at you. And he says once again in a strong, firm voice, I believe it will be fine. And if you have any issues with her, do not hesitate to come back here. Agreed?
With her? You mean Azara?
Finn speaks up and says, he speaks of the one of her kind. The one we are now scheduled to meet for lunch next door at the Fighting Spirits.
I see.
From the other night, do you remember the conversation, Rook? And this is Finn
Well,
talking to you.
a lot has happened, but I'm vaguely familiar with the idea.
Finn says, last thing, is she also disguising herself? How will we know it's her? Vander chuckles as he grabs a couple books and closes them on intricately placed bookmarks. And grabs a bottle and takes a quick little short swig as he hesitates and puts it down. And he says, you more than likely won't. That's how Lydia does things. It would seem disguising herself as something you and her, Azara, have in common. Consider the test of your skills. If you're able to find her before she's able to find you and point her out, I would be impressed. He turns and he walks down a stairway down beneath there, and you can hear him get out a set of keys. You see a faint glow emanate from the door as a symbol appears on the actual door. His back seems to be covering, and his long robe seems to be covering what the actual image itself is, but you can see a light and a piece of a runic circle. The door opens, and a gust of still air seems to blow up through the boughs of this place. And you can hear conversations being made down in the deeper corridors of this, as if he's opening up like a downstairs cellar or attic where people are having meetings. I want for you both to roll a perception check for me.
Would be 12 plus. Quit fighting me, damn you.
Stop your fighting, damn it.
Perception is a +6. 12 plus 6, 18.
Nice. Colby, what'd you get, boss?
19.
Okay.
Sure.
Getting rolls of 19, which isn't quite as high as it could have been. You're able to you're able to discern that there's something going on down there, Arson, and there's people down in there that are having some kind of meetings. You hear at least 2 or 3 different distinct voices. But that's it. With your role, Rook, you find one of those voices to be familiar. You remember being questioned about what happened last night by a Bulgaron, what seemed to be like some kind of scholarly priest of some kind in off-white robes and things, asking you questions about what had transpired here in the barrel that fell and the kind of accidental attack on the side of the building, and the things that had happened. And you recognize his deep, husky voice echo from this, but you can't discern any words particularly with that roll.
I don't have an answer for that.
Well, good. That's great.
Well, thank you for letting us know, Siri.
I mean, she's on it. She knows what's going on. I think we'll be unplugging Siri now. I think we've had enough of her for one afternoon. Okay, so, with that, Arson, did you have anything you wanted to ask of anyone in here or anything else before we move onward and upward?
No, I think now he knows where they're scheduled. He's either contemplating about how that's going to go or contemplating what the temple has to offer for him now.
Okay. So as you all go outside, it is still pretty early. You've went from the Rangers Guild, then you've come to here, It is about 10 o'clock, but it's not quite time for lunch yet, of course. But the Fighting Spirits Meadery and Winery is on the next level up of the city. It is not exactly on this same. No. It's on this same plateau, the same level of the city. But it's going to be around past the central fighting arena. It's going to be past. It's going to be a decent stroll through the city to get to it. Okay. Does anyone have anything they're wanting to do or stop and take care of while they're in the city before you head over that way, or any conversation you're wanting to have with Finn or Azara, as those two seem to be kind of tight knit and close together as they're walking, making their way in to that place?
I think my focus is going to be on keeping an eye on everything.
Okay.
I just want to keep eyes on everything in the surroundings.
Okay.
I'm a perceptive boy.
Right on. And Arson, what about you? Do you have anywhere particularly you're wanting to go, or are we just going to move on to the next location? Is there any conversation you want to have with any of them along the way? This is your opportunity. And at some point, I'll stop asking you guys this all the time, because you have all kinds of groups. You have some groups that don't know, they can't shut up and just want to ask and ask and ask. And that's fine too. And then you have some groups that don't ever ask anything. Okay. And Colby's one of those folks. So I'm trying to give you opportunities, and if you don't want them, I don't mean to make this a crawl, but I just want to make sure you're having a chance to do what your character wants to do. So, do you want to just go to that place?
If anything, he might be looking for some sort of some form of like a pigeon messenger.
Oh, no, there's definitely that.
So he doesn't have to walk up the steps later.
Okay.
Yeah, he wants to look for one of those.
Okay. Roll a history check for me.
Uh, 14.
Okay. That is not quite as good as I had hoped, but it tells you this. There are different places set up throughout the city that definitely have this. And there, you know that there's one right at the foot of Skywell. Now, there are two different forms of this kind of service that send messages from place to place. There are the basic ones that we'll say have like pigeons and different birds that can deliver messages, and you've seen it. You've seen them fly throughout the city, and usually they have either a black or gold ribbon tied around their feet. Okay, you don't know what they're symbolic of, but one seems to be a higher class than the other. Okay, but there are also falcons that some of the guards have, and some of them walk around with a falcon on their shoulder, usually the sorcerers or the wizards of the group. As you saw the other night, when everything was going on in that fight, there were the two lance armored guards that had the hawk or the falcon-shaped helmets with the visor, and they were with that one wizard in the middle. One of those lancers had a hawk or a falcon on his shoulder. Okay, and you will see that you know that if you paid extra coin, you could have one of those deliver your message, and it would get done a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently. And it's for more important kind of stuff, because these are creatures that are taught to defend themselves and get there no matter what, whereas pigeon is just a shot in the dark. You don't know. Okay? And you will be passing one of those at the foot of Skywell along the way. Would you like to ask the others to make a pit stop there, and you have a message you'd like to send, or what would you like to do?
Yeah, he's at least gonna let him know that he will be stopping there. If they don't have to wait with him, he'll catch up because he knows where it's located because he's been there before.
Okay. As you suggest that, Azara stops, and she turns, and she steps past Finthir, and she steps to you. And she looks up at you warmly, and she's putting on a nervous smile, because you can tell she's been thinking about meeting someone of her own race. You can only imagine what it would be like to meet another Draken. You know, what would that be? And how would they see me? What have I missed? How long have I been gone? And she's never met another one of her race ever. So that's a huge deal for her, right?
Mhm.
And when she looks at you, she goes, "We have spent our whole lives separated. And we've just now found each other. Let us travel together. We are in this together, and I believe we should stay together, at least for the day. We can stop with you if you would like. Is that okay?"
That's okay.
She smiles, and she puts her hand on your shoulder. And you can feel the hand, you know, as she rubs your shoulder, and she goes, "Thank you, Arson. Thank you." She turns back around and walks past Finn, and she starts heading the direction of this, and Finn just gives you a long look and kind of a half kind of please kind of nod as your eyes meet Finn's, and the two begin to move forward, and they're now going in that direction, which is barely altering over to this place. And let's make up a name for what we want to call these stations, because I like this idea of having like different kind of carrier pigeons and stuff. Jeremy, Colby, you guys have any interesting names we could call this kind of service in a place like this? Like, I don't want to call it the pigeon coop messages and deliveries, or PQS pigeon something services. You know, it's on a big side of a big brown van or some shit. But we should make this canon and write something down here. Does anyone have anything off the top of their head that sounds good? I'm fiddling with an idea right here, but I'm not quite sure. What do you guys think?
I think you're muted, Jimmy.
Did you
What's
say they had pigeons, falcons? Like they had
Yes.
different variants of birds?
Those were the two main ones that his roll got him. And you roll a history check there, Rook. We'll see.
Well, that's a natural 18 plus bonus.
Well, then you know that they have those two, and that the
21.
Falcons, the Falcons are usually for the guards and the officials in the city to send messages back and forth. If you pay enough coin, and if one's available, you can have a Falcon deliver your message. And they're pretty tough. They're slightly armored with leather studs and of black and gold painted light armor that they wear, and they have these bandings that come around them. They would be the ideal choice. But the pigeons, you can think once or twice where you've maybe seen a dead pigeon somewhere, maybe only once where it had a note still in its feet, but you left it alone. And where they go to, it's almost like, I almost imagine this being like, you know how you go to the horse stables and you get a fucking horse? There's going to be one of those wackaloons. He's going to be someone that is either an old person that's getting ready to retire from the guard that runs this as his cushy, your final days working for New Gemdar and the King kind of posted kind of thing. It could be some old grizzled fucker that does this. It's worked with them for a while. Or it could be someone that's just an animal trainer, like a ranger or a druid or something, that runs this in the city and is freelancing here. You know, I'll figure that out, but I'm curious as to what you all would name this shit.
Avian shipment services.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Okay, the avian shipment and what's another word? What's another name for message?
Notice?
Yeah.
Avian shipment and messaging services. ASMS. ASMS. Asmus.
Better than ass.
Yeah, it's close though. It's literally an M is the difference. Okay.
I feel like it would have been funnier though if it was called ass for short.
Right.
We at ass can get your messages across the entire nation.
That's exactly right. With ass.
Bridging communications one gap at a time.
That's great. That's great, man. Okay. So, you guys approach and let's do a roll. Jeremy, roll me a 1d20 20. There are probably a few falcons available. One, you'd be lucky if there's a pigeon that can barely even has one wing working. It's available. What'd you get?
13.
Not a bad day. Not a bad day. When you approach this place, you see. Let's go with. Okay. When you go up to it, there seems to be almost some kind of booth, like the towers. When you're going into the city, there will be these two main towers, and they have these little doors that open up in the bottom of them, and they're places where guards can come down and through and throw and whatever. Okay, there's one of those that has kind of a what's the word I want to look for? An outreach part of Skywell to the bottom. It's almost like a column. It's kind of built in like a half moon into the outside face of this. And there's a couple different ones of these. Okay, and you can tell that, when you're in Skywell, it goes up different flights, many of them, to get up to the very top part of the city. And in these, you can see one to the right-hand side of the doorway, and you can see many different metal posts that have ropes hanging off of them, and you can see a decent amount of bird shit that has been splattered kind of along the side of the building because of where they are, and maybe there's a little bit of straw down on the ground below. And you can see, almost like in Assassin's Creed, when you're climbing out on that wooden ledge right before you jump off and do the skydive, there's a couple of those coming out of different windows and stuff of this one column or section of Skywell. And as you're looking up, you see a pigeon or two fly in, you see another one fly in, another one fly out that has messages, and you see one falcon rested up on one of the highest ones through the sunlight and the clouds. Okay, it's kind of looking at you and cocking its head like this a little bit. It has gold ribbon wrapped around its feet, no message. And as you guys are observing this, and you're looking at kind of some of the filth that's there, a small, older man, looks to be a dwarf, steps out, and he has a shovel, okay, and a broom in one hand. And he seems to be wearing, it looks like what the guard and stuff wears here. It's the black and gold. It's a banner, like a toga that wraps around the shoulder. He has some old armor and stuff, but he's not wearing a helmet. You can see that the helmet is actually resting inside that opening. As he opens up the wooden door, it's in there hanging on a chair, and his cloak and stuff over his shoulders hanging on the chair as well. And you can smell a little bit of booze on him. He's been boozing up a little bit early this morning, and he comes out there and goes, "Oh, here we go." Well, hi everyone. You might want to take just a simple step back. I'm going to go ahead and try to pick up some of this mess, but you never know, and you can't be uncertain. Hey, it's a product of nature, am I right? And he starts shoveling up that mess a little bit, and he's taking it, and he scoops it up, and he's looking at you, Arson. He goes, "You're more than welcome to help me shovel some of this up if you'd like, but do you have a message maybe you would need sending, or something of that nature?"
Yes, I have a message to send to the temple in the mountains.
The temple in the mountains, and he's looking around, and he goes, "Oh, you're talking about Tanima's place, way atop there." He looks down at your legs, he goes, "I wouldn't mind parting with some coin. Those steps are treacherous, especially in this time of year." He says, "Let me take care of this, and You'll see a clipboard in there on the shelf. Go ahead and write up your message and get it ready. I'm not much of the scribe. You'll have to write your own, as the scribe is on vacation. Turns around and he dumps a shovel full of that straw and bird shit into the bucket, then grabs a broom and comes over and starts sweeping up the mess. As he's nodded that, you'll see over by one of these almond kind of half-shaped doors that opens up into this outer column, there's going to be two little windows that are about chest high to an average sized person. Be a little low for you, Arson. And you'll see clipboards and parchment and quills and pens, all kinds of stuff right there. And there's a chain on that quill, little like a rope or chain that holds it in place. Almost like when you're at the doctor's office and you're writing their shit up. And you would assume that's where he's wanting you to write the note up. Seems to be many different pieces of parchment in there. And there's a sign that hangs up in the foreground, but you can't read it from where you're at. Do you have your message ready and what you want to say in it?
Yeah.
Okay. You go ahead and approach that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As you do, you look back in the distance, there seems to be a chalkboard in the back that's roughly written, and it talks about the avian shipment and management services for New Gemdar and the greater parts of Altarion. You recognize Altarion as the main continent. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it has some fees and some charges back there. It says one-piece parchment messages, handwritten. It talks about it's like 5 silver. Scribe enabled and messages made by the on-hand scribe are like 10 silver. And then you see other ones of high importance, and you can see Falcon in parentheses out from that of for nobility, first come first serve after that, and that's anywhere from 2 to 10 gold. And it has that written down. Okay? And then it has written hard on the chalkboard, only when available. Down below that. Okay? Which one are you thinking about going with?
I think he's just gonna go with the classic pigeon.
Okay. So it'll be that amount of coin, and you don't see exactly where that would be paid, but as he's bending over and he's sweeping up that straw and all that stuff, you can hear a bunch of change in the satchel that he has on the side of his armor, this dwarf, and you recognize that as someone that's carrying around coin, change like a vendor of a sorts. Okay? Give me a brief idea. If you want to tell me what it is, if you want to be private, you can send me the message in chat. It's however you want to do it.
Yeah, he's gonna write, I know when I'm from, and we'll say, and the price it took for me to be here. He's gonna write that.
And you're wanting to send this up to the temple to Tenema or Yakon Ru, or just...
He's gonna do Yakon Rule because he's the one he is interacting more with.
Okay. That'll work. Go ahead and write me a intelligence check. I want to see how well you write this and see how well it goes.
19.
Very well. You're able to convey your thoughts very well in this. It seems considered. It seems to the point. It sounds exactly how you would want it to. Make sure you make a note that you've sent this up there to them so I can give you a response later on if we would happen to forget this. Okay? As you're finishing up, the dwarf walks back in there, and I would mention he looks to be about 60, 65 years old for a mortal, for a human, which is whatever age it would be for him, of course. And he has very, very black hair with gray stripes in it. It's braided up with a lot of nobility and a lot of dignity, but the braids have been left in for a couple days and are starting to frizzle. So he's fancy in function. Okay, but he's been hitting the bottle a little bit and has been on a bit of a binge, and he's close to retirement, right? So he's going through the etiquette, like he's wearing a tuxedo, but he didn't get it pressed. You get what I'm saying? That's the
Mhm.
feel this guy's giving off. He has a young, kind face. He doesn't have all the weathered marks of a regular dwarf because his voice is a little bit younger than you would think. He's not lived the hard life that some dwarves have, and you can tell that, you know. Um, as he goes back in there, he shuts that door behind him and he walks up to the counter, and you can kind of see him. He grunts and steps up on a step, and now he's an elbow on that concrete slab. And he said, "Let's take a look here and see what you've got." Then he takes it and take it into Yakon room. Message and things of this nature. Okay, okay. This should work. And does he have his own special place of getting these kind of messages, or are you just sending it up there in general?
Just sending it up there in general. I am not aware of any special places to receive these messages up there.
He says, "I see." He reaches over and he grabs out this candle that now you're starting to realize where this smell has been coming from. And he has this big 6-wick candle that's been burning. And as he pulls it up, he pulls out this spoon, this metal ladle that's on the side of it. And he takes it up and he blows on it, and he's like, whoo. He's blowing on the handle, and he pours a little bit of a droplet of this wax on the actual thing. And he stamps it with the new Gimdar seal of approval and shit like that. And he's writing up the thing. He says, and I didn't take the best look in there. How are we spelling this again? Yakon, how do you spell that again?
Remember how to spell it. I wrote
Okay,
in my notes as
with a
well.
19, we're going to say you did pretty good earlier. So you explained it pretty close. So I'll let that carry over, my friend. I won't give you too hard a time, right? So he
Yeah,
writes
it's been
it
a
down
while.
on there. And he says, "Okay, and now that comes to business of paying for the bird, and wish you, and the one you choose to have take your message to Yakon Ru." And he's just kind of waiting, and you can hear his foot tapping, echoing inside that chamber that he's in as he's waiting for you to hand over some coin to him to make this transaction complete.
Yeah, he's gonna hand over the 5 silver and say, just a regular pigeon.
Regular pigeon. Oh, I sure hope it gets there. And he looks down, and you can sense that he's just kind of working an angle here, okay? As he holds his hand out, he doesn't give you eye contact. He just holds out the thick-fingered hand. You give him the coin?
Yeah.
Okay. As you do, he takes it and he just pockets it automatically. And he says, "Oh, I'll be right back with this, and I'll give you a shout, and you'll be able to see your message leaving from the top and be headed out on its way. Just give me just a few moments, okay? I'm going to find one that's, the cold season's been hard on us. I'm going to go up shore and see if we can find one worthy of this note that you've written." Turns around, starts walking his way up the stairway, and you can kind of hear the first bit of steps. And there's this awkward silence as you all are kind of waiting on the outside. Anyone can interrupt me at any moment as you're waiting for this message to go up there and be sent. Do you hang around to see it take off, Arson, or are you guys just going to get back en route?
He's gonna wait just to make sure it takes off because he doesn't want to leave and just have it be like some sort of like scam or like it doesn't take off.
Okay. As you wait for... Oh, you did really good. Literally 1 minute. You would see... you would hear some things, and you would hear, "There you go." And you see him reach out, and he releases, and he's got a big leather arm and a guard on his arm. Reaches his arm out, and the pigeon flies off of his arm, and it has what looks like a black ribbon wrapped around its feet, and your note, okay, held within. And it kind of flies a wide circle as it comes out and swoops down a little bit, it starts making its way over to that side of the city. You can only imagine it was trying to get a sense of where it was and the wind and things of that nature. And he looks down at you and he sends out a hand, a stubby hand. He says, "All is well. Message is on its way, and thank you." And he heads back in. Okay. With that, are we moving on to the meadery and winery?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll me your perception check, Rook, and let's see if you see what's going down in the city. You are muted, my friend. Try it again.
19 plus 6.
Oh yeah, yeah. You are the knight. So
Not only am I the knight, but I can see the knight before it knows it's the night.
Yes, yes. You know what kind of socks Batman's wearing right now. So, let's just see something here. Okay. That's significant. As you get done, and as you're looking up and you're watching the bird fly off, you look and you remember how in Skywell there were many different balconies and many different layers and levels like this, right? That kind of hang out and look over the city, right? Now, do you remember the proper name of the highest level of the city?
Skywell, wasn't it?
Skywatch.
Skywatch.
Yes. You see many different banners that usually flap out from the outside, and they represent the different airships and things that are docked up above. As you're looking up there, with that roll, you catch a reflection of something. Like a little shot of light. Like a piece of glass or something. And as you're looking up at the bird and it kind of hits you for a minute, you look over and you could swear you saw someone peeking out at you with almost like a telescope. Like a seeing scope. From one of those above balconies. And you could see that the best you could see is this thing seemed to be a dark figure. Maybe a hood from the point. That was peering out over one of the top of those balconies. That was looking down at you with some kind of a scope. You've seen those on crossbows before, but there was no shot. And you've seen people use them off the front of ships. Someone, you believe, was looking down in your direction as the light caught this. Okay. What are you doing in this moment?
Is there a way that I can possibly passively or nonchalantly kind of guide everybody out of that immediate sight? Like maybe is there like some balconies that we could just kind of step over under?
Well, then you need to make that happen. So if you can't figure out how to do it because of your surroundings, you tell me what kind of check it is. The higher you roll, I may give you a suggestion or narrate that for you, if that would work. Or you can be creative and narrate it yourself. But, you know, right now, Finn and Azara are the ones that are pretty much leading this. You're going to have to jump up and steer the horse a little bit, if you would so choose.
Are there ample, well, let's put it this way. Is the area that we're in an area that we could have overhead coverage?
Right now, from the tower, it's going to take you at least another 50 or 60 foot to get away from that to get to something that's going to have some kind of cover. There's quite a big open area at the base of Skywell. And
I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Over to some markets and to some buildings, you're going to have to get out of that main structural place.
I know what I'm going to do.
Okay, what's up?
So, I don't think I've made a lot of enemies. Maybe I have.
Oh, no, that's great.
So, my thoughts are it's either somebody whose attention I want or somebody's attention I really don't care for. Either way, I see him. I'm thinking the eye's on me. So
Sure.
what I'm going to do,
The reflection of the glass was, so yeah.
right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow my pace a little bit. I'm going to stay just far back enough that I can still keep an eye on where they're going and follow, but
Okay.
back enough to where if someone tries to pull some bullshit, they got me to deal with rather than ambushing everybody else.
You letting anyone else in on this, or you keeping it to yourself for now?
Keeping it to myself. I don't want anybody else on any more of alert than what we already are.
Roll me a deception check with advantage.
That's a deception. Oh, there it is. It's a plus 3, 15.
Okay. So this works. And right at the moment, the one person you would think that might catch on that you're lagging back or up to something would be Finn, if anyone from this group. And he does not seem to notice this, nor does Arson, as you are staying back a little bit and kind of nonchalantly peering up through the top of your dark hood, looking around as you go. The figure has not reappeared, and you do not see anything else in the moment. And what kind of distance you thinking? 5-10 foot back away from the end of the group. How far back you holding?
I'm thinking as far back as that I can drop while still keeping an eye on it.
Let's go.
Because I want them close enough that if something happens and I need to react and rush to them, I can with ease. But basically, if we go walking past an alley and they get past the alley and then two thugs step out and like, all right, we're here to talk to you.
Okay.
Well, then they're focused on me while everyone else is behind them.
10 foot then. You happy with that?
Yeah, I can live with that.
Okay, that works. So that's happening. As you guys traverse through the city, there are no other incidents. It is starting to get busy, and it's neat. Well, it's interesting, Rook, because now with that burden on you, and thinking about Sir Khan, and thinking about the Red Queen, thinking about all these different things that you have going on right now, there are too many people to watch. The market's starting to open up. The people are trading. The festivities are beginning. You're starting to smell the cooks. You can hear the drums and the music in the background from this lower layer of the city. They seem to celebrate the hardest. They party the hardest out of anyone in New Gemdar down here. I would like for you just to entertain me. I want you to roll me a composure check, which is charisma.
Not phenomenal. Just a regular charisma check.
Uh-huh.
That's 12.
Okay. That's easy enough to maintain. You do feel overwhelmed, like you can't foresee everything here, but you're able to keep your composure about you and not show your cards. But you know inside that if something wanted to harm you out here with all these people around, you wouldn't be able to stop it right out. Even with your stepping back and taking your precautions. Yeah.
And that's why it's one of those, like, it starts opening up. I'm a little uneasy, but I'm basically just trusting my gut because I've got a pass of 16 perception.
Yes.
So it's going to be one of those, I'm not going to notice every little thing.
Right.
But I'm going to trust my gut instinct when I feel like something's up.
Right, that's fair.
And that's just kind of how he's rolling through this. It's like, if something's going to catch me by surprise, it's going to catch me by surprise, but it's going to catch me, nobody else.
Right, yeah, that's fair. Okay. So, as you continue to do this, you guys finally make your way over and you and Finn both recognize the fountains. Finn kind of turns around, Arson, and gives you a grin and a look. And looks down at your side and stuff and sees that bottle that you're packing on you and looks in that area with kind of a half smile and a knowing nod. And says back to you, it's like, it'd be nice to actually get to use the front door for this place for a change instead of bounding from one floor to the other. Right, Arson?
Front door beats ice.
Point made. Finn goes up and he opens up the front door politely for Zara and goes into a half bow and puts his feet together and puts a hand in front of his chest and waves his arm for her to walk in first. She looks over and she says, thank you. And she kind of smiles and gives him a nod. That seems a little awkward, like she doesn't know exactly what kind of etiquette he's using, but she's trying to be polite as she can. And she heads on into that place, and you can hear a storyteller. Someone is speaking on the inside. As you open up, the light kind of comes through, and you can hear a few people inside this place, but there seems to be some kind of act going on inside the meadery. You can hear a few dishes and things clamoring around, and the smell of muffins and baked sweetbreads and things of that nature seems to come out when the door is opened. What are you all doing? Are you all heading on in, or you got something else to do first?
He's heading in.
Okay. As you go into this place, this is your first time going in here. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to the Fighting Spirits Meadery Winery. As you first walk in and take in this place, it has an elegant cottage-like feel to it. Like someone took this race of halflings. This is made for small people in all the important spots, but they have places for people of your size to be able to hang out if need be. So this isn't going to be like any of the other taverns or things like that you've been into. This is a little bit more upscale. Okay? There are curtains and drapes on the inside of this place that are of dark crushed reds and grand royal blues and things of that nature. And the floor in here is made of stone, but it has some kind of clear coat polish on it, and the stones are rounded. It's beautifully done stonework in this place. I mean, it's impressive. It's almost like an elaborate rock garden that has been polished over with like lacquer, and it just shines, and everything smells very clean in here, and these smells of these foods are not interrupted by every once in a while the sour whiff of urine from the bathroom, and it doesn't have that natural stank to it. This is upscale, but it has a cottage kind of feel to it. There's natural woods in here. There are natural kind of clay jars and bronze pots and things of that nature. You'll see several different tables, like at least 24 of them, that are all out around, and there are 2 stages on the far right side of this place that are like these small kind of stages. One seems to be dormant, and it has some natural kind of like halfling, like thatched roof work. It makes it kind of look like it's kind of a house inside here, but it's not. If you've ever been into like a theme-based restaurant before, you know how sometimes they'll have these little booths off to the side to have like the metal awning, kind of like a charming kind of little segue into the seating inside. This is done with almost like really nicely done clay tiled thatch work in here, right? And there's these neat little booths and stuff. And one of these small stages on the side has 2 people. One, this is interesting. One of these people seems to be a satire, okay, and they seem to be telling a intricate story. And this seems to be an older satire. This satire has very silver and white hair, and it shows some age. And he wears some grand robes that are made of that royal blue with silver onlay. And he's sitting up there, and he's walking back and forth with a walking stick, and he's holding his hands out, and he's telling this story. Okay, and beside him seems to be a young girl. Okay, probably 16, 17 years old, just now starting to become a young adult, younger. Okay, but not a child by any means, but a very young adult. And she's over to the side, and she has very novice kind of like wizard sorcerer type robes. And this is something you've never seen. As she has a certain glow and she's moving her hands around, she is creating an illusionary effect in the middle of the room that is animating the story that the old satire is telling. This is the closest thing to a movie that you're going to get in the Tales of Ulran. And it's an amazing thing to behold. None of you have ever seen anything like this before. Ever. This is kind of a new thing. What's really, really interesting for you, particularly Rook, is because after hearing just a few moments, you are familiar with the story they are telling. Okay? It's a tale of the separation of your continent from the main continent where the Titans and Giants were from. It's about the scythe and that reef that goes down through there and the large horns that were blown and that whole tale that takes place. He's telling the story of that. And you've only heard bits and pieces of it. You know what I mean? You've not been around a whole lot of other people of your race ever. You know, most of the stories you heard were from your dad when you were younger, before you started to become reclusive and stuff like that. And he would tell you tales and things. Roll a history check with advantage for me. Now, moving forward, we're going to do this. I want to paint a picture for you guys. Okay? We're going to move away from advantage and disadvantage. Okay, but it is still going to have a function in this. In the new version of the scheme that we're writing and stuff like that, there's going to be when you have momentum and you have burden. Okay? When you have momentum, okay, and what we also like to call favor. Okay, momentum is when you're rolling things in combat, but when you have favor with something, you add a 1d10 to your d20 roll. That is our version of advantage. Okay? When you're in an unfavorable situation or you have misfortune, you only get to roll 1d10. That's the way we're doing advantage and disadvantage moving forward. Okay? I'll let your minds get wrapped around the repercussions of that on down the road, but it actually compares up really, really nice. And I like it better. Simple rant, because we do this and record these for ourselves, but we're not trying to put on the whole theater show. We just have a real session here. We're going to bullshit for a second, right? Because this is a good time to introduce this. There's nothing that's cool about having advantage and rolling 2 rolls below, like a 1 and a 2. To me, that just doesn't make sense. Okay? You should not be able to roll a natural 1 when you have advantage. And when you have disadvantage, you should not have the option of rolling 2 natural 20s. I know it's all about overcoming the odds and all those kind of things, but it's still, I don't like the way it carries over. So if you have favor, the lowest you can get is a 2. The most you could get is a 30. If you do not have favor and you have misfortune, okay, the highest you can get is a 10. And the lowest you can get is a 1. Okay? Let your heads get wrapped around that. It makes for some very interesting things. And in the game that we're kind of projecting, where you have these defense primaries and defense secondaries, and these high numbers and these DCs and things, this is going to play into that very well. Okay? So, I want you to roll a 1d20 and a 1d10 for your history check on this, because you have favor, Jeremy. What'd you get, bud? You're muted.
The 12 on the die. And history is a +3, 15.
Okay, 15. Okay. You definitely get parts of this, and you're understanding parts of this story that you didn't know. There's certain details in the picture that this young female apprentice wizard seems to be painting up here is really bringing this to life. She's making things look not like you would have imagined, but like this grandiose saying you're seeing in this like 10-foot like circle in the middle of the room. Like she is doing some kind of crazy illusionary magic when she is able to do this spell. Okay, this is something that she specializes in. And you can see people through this on the other side of the room as everybody's staring into the central part of the room as they look at this. Okay? It's above a very ornate table in the middle where normally there would be seating, but for this theatrical thing, it seems to have had this put on display there as well. You see the large horns that are coming down off the side of the mountains, and you can see Valdros survivors climbing and scaling up them on the large cliffs and shores. And you can see the giants begin to step into the icy waters from their own main continent and begin to make their way through. And they're being cautious because this whole area is a frozen over wasteland in between. And as the giants begin to make their way across, some of them have whips. Some of them are carrying like shackles and chains. They're going to re-enslave these Valdros. And they're going to take them back. And then you hear the horns blow. And it fills up this place with the harmonic sounds of horns, all blowing in unison. And as they do, you look around and you can hear some of the cups in this place kind of start to rattle on the tables. And a lot of people, you hear a lot of oohs and ahs and things. For you can actually hear the daggers and stuff rattling against their sheaths inside of your coat, Rook. And Arson, with you could hear your short sword and feel that vibration like you were standing beside a bass cannon at a concert or something. And as they all harmonize, you hear this loud crack as it goes through the ice that's bridging a gap between these land masses. And all the giants start to fall. And as they're falling, and you can see the black silhouettes and things like this, and they're just kind of drifting off into this, they turn into what looks like music notes. Audible music notes that kind of fade off into the distance and turn into dust and blow away in this illusion. And it shows an actual map, like a paper map, in the middle of the room. And it shows one continent being ripped apart and creating two. It's like an extra added layer of effect on this, as if it's telling the story. It is magnificent. As the old satire recants and says, and that is exactly how the Copian Sea was formed, as the giant oppressors did not know the strength and the determination of the Valdros people. They thought them ignorant, and for that they met an icy demise, and they have been free ever since. A harrowing story. Some of the first people of their kind, of our kind, the human race, to ever stand up against the giant oppressors. To the Valdros. And he reaches over and he grabs a bottle of wine up, and all these different people in the place raise up glasses and things like that. You don't see any other Valdros in here, Rook, and they may not even know that you are one because of your hood, but you are a big fella. Okay? And they all do a cheers and a salute to that. Do you say anything in this moment? You feel Thin does turn around and looks at you and raises an eyebrow and is slowly nodding at you as you hear this going down. What's your reaction, sir?
Under the shadow of his hood, Rook's going to smile. I think when Finthier looks back, that's all he's going to see is just kind of a large smile across his face.
Nice.
To hear that his kind is talked so highly about, despite the fact that he was treated as the way he was when he was younger.
Yep. I like it. Okay. In that moment, as he's holding it up, you hear a loud, boisterous voice come from the background. And you see a halfling walk out that looks like Jack Black. Okay? With slicked back black hair that's pulled in a long ponytail, and he has a ornate vest on of red crushed velvet and all kinds of gold embroidery and stuff on it like that too. A white plain shirt that's rolled up at the sleeves with very hairy arms. His color is kind of popped in almost some kind of like eccentric Elvis-like style. Okay? With baggy pants and extraordinarily polished black boots. Okay? He has a tassel-like belt on his side that hangs down that has all kinds of neat embroidery work on it as well. It hangs down almost like a rope belt off the side. And he has a large stein in one hand and 2 bottles of wine in the other as he's twirling them around almost like the glass balls in Labyrinth when David Bowie would move those glass orbs around. He's able to do that with 2 wine bottles in his other hand as he's holding up that mug. He comes, all right. And he says, well, let's all hope that we don't have to buy drinks for a Valdros here tonight because we only have so much of this stuff to go around. Am I right, people? And everyone kind of starts laughing and chuckling. And he says, but I'm sure we can find a few people that would like to have a drink or two of this fine stuff that I have right here. And he goes around to who's with it, who has an empty cup, and who would like to have a little bit. And you hear a bunch of people, here. You hear different voices. With that, Azara turns to you all and says, I think there's an open table over there. Should we just seat ourselves? They seem to be preoccupied. What are you guys saying?
Drink does sound nice, but probably best to take advantage of the hustle.
Okay. Meaning?
Let's go to another table.
Okay. So you find your way over to a table, and as this character is walking around and doing these things and whatnot,
I'd almost like to think she says that, and Rook is reaching for an empty cup on the counter, and he just looks at the cup, looks back at her. Okay, good.
Right? Fair point. As you go over there, a halfling woman, a busty halfling woman, is over there, and she sees you guys walking across. She runs over. She goes, oh, good heavens, hold on. And she starts cleaning it off, and she's rubbing that thing like this. And she looks up at you. Arson, I need you to roll me a composure check, please.
The dice was 13. I don't know if there's any bonuses I should add to that. Is that charisma?
It would be charisma, yeah.
All right, then that would be 15 total.
Okay. You're able to avert your gaze as when she bends over to clean off this table and stuff like that, she is clad this way intentionally, of course. And she looks up to you, and you're actually able to, you kind of look away. She goes, oh, that's fine. I see we have a few shy ones in here. No worries. There'll be another act up very soon. I'll have, it's early still, so I don't want to be rude. What would we be having? And she's kind of looking over, and when she looks at you, Arson, she's looking you up and down, and she's kind of like holding like this, and she's kind of shaking her head, and she sees your very common monk kind of attire and your very bare bones approach. You know that she's worried that you can't afford the shit here. She's like, we probably have some leftover samples of bread and cheese from the bar. I don't know who else touched it and things of that nature, but if you're going to want a drink, and at that point, the halfling goes back by, and he's like, and he's pouring all these things in long pours. He goes, that's what I'm talking about right there. What? And he's just singing away and just having a ball. And you're like, if you would want some of that, it's going to cost you a little bit. And she looks over at Finn and gives him a look up and down. He's dressed a little bit more elegantly. What are you saying to this, Arson?
I can afford what I want. And I also want to give a little, what I call my own little payment to, I believe is the owner of this establishment. And he pats the bottle on his side.
Okay. She looks at it automatically and identifies it as one of their make, one of their brand. And she looks at that for a moment. And she says, and you know the owner of this establishment? If you knew that, you would surely recognize. And as she kind of pulls her shirt up a little bit and fixes herself, that he and his wife have plenty of those. They're the ones that brew it, honey.
This is just a little payback from their little act towards me. And they wanted me to give them some more after I climbed their building for them, after they got a little too tipsy.
I'm going to roll a check because I'm not sure she knows who the hell you're talking about.
I know what I'm talking about at this point.
I know. She rolled a natural 20. She rolled a natural 20. So when you say the roof, and you're talking about a prank, she looks at you, and all of a sudden a grin starts growing. Right? And then her cheeks kind of fill up. And she just looks really happy. She goes, you wouldn't be talking about a particularly large, well-spoken fellow, would you?
I definitely am.
Have a few drinks, and I will see if I can maybe get this to him. Remember, it is always polite to tip your waitress. And she takes the bottle from your hand very precisely, and she has several different rings and seems to have her hands pedicured and taken very good care of. And as that's happening, you hear a little bit of wine hit the floor. Whoops! Sorry, guys. This got a little carried away. And he turns around and he starts singing and pouring more. And he's just long pouring this shit for people all over the place in here. And the smell of it, you know, the wine you're used to smelling is rough. This smells, if anything, this is like a blessing. This is like the potpourri of the gods being thrown on the floor in this place. It smells amazing. You will have noticed, now that you're sitting here for just a moment, there are large chandeliers, at least 4 of them, that are hanging from the ceiling. Large cottage-style looking things that are made to be elaborate. They reflect light very beautifully. There's like almost like, you know how in pool rooms and stuff, and the pool lights have that stained glass kind of covering? And they reflect out the different kind of greens, reds, and whites, and yellows, and whatever's making it up. Up here, these look to be stained glass domes that have stained glass pieces of what seems like to be grapes, okay, and vineyards and bushes and generic symbols for sun and sunshine of sunbeams, and vines that wrap around this thing on the outside like grapevines that make a neat little wreath around the top of it. And then the candle lights and everything that reflect off that make brilliant colors on the ceiling and walls of this place. Okay? Now you can see that there is one more floor above this. And it's all open in the middle with railings that go all the way around the side. Okay? And then above that would be a further 3rd floor, but it looks to be a vaulted ceiling with big, elaborately polished old English looking timbers, like very old English cottage looking in here. Okay? There's people sitting on the next railings up and things like that, and the waitresses run up and down the steps. And this is a very bustling, very, very nice place to be in. Okay? She takes that, and she looks over at you, Rook, and she kind of looks down and looks up at you, almost like she's looking to see if there's a snake in a hole, kind of. And she says to you, she goes, And she just kind of waits for a minute, and she goes, what will you all be having? You'll be having a lot, right?
One would think, but no. I'd like to keep it light.
Something light, then. I can do that. And she winks and points at you. For the others, Finthier says that he will just share in whatever it is that you're having, right? And Azara says that she doesn't want anything but some water. And you know that she had a little incident the other night with drinking, and it made her reveal certain things. So she's kind of against that as well. So she takes the orders, and shortly thereafter, she brings over a plate of what seems to be some wine cheese. If you've ever had it before, it's really, really cool looking. It's a pale cheese and sometimes sharp, but it has like red tints and purple tints that run through it. And it brings over a loaf of that dark bread that you'd almost get like at the Outback. Like, I forget what kind of bread that's called, but it's a bread like that. It's already been cut up. She goes, this didn't cost us anything extra. This was just to whet the palate of some of our upper clientele that came in earlier this morning. And they're already upstairs, passed out from the day. Can't handle the stuff. She goes, and she pushes it over to the table. And she goes, if you guys need anything else other than this. She goes, I'm Brenda. All you have to do is let me know. I'll be back through in a little bit, guys. Take care. Anyone stopping Brenda before she walks off? No? What? What do?
Maybe.
What we doing, Rook? What we doing?
I think it's something clever.
Well,
What time of day are we looking at? We still early morning?
We're going to say this is probably about 11 o'clock now. Because noon is roughly when we're going to meet this supposed Lydia person here, if we can see her coming.
So McDonald's has just switched the signs from breakfast to...
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to, I can say she's flipping over chalkboards on the back. And there's someone up here who's like, no, I still want to be... No, I'm sorry, hun, we can't make those anymore. The cooks have already switched things over. We're going to have to go to... We can do that if you would like.
I think he would stop her.
Okay.
And just have a rather long day planned, along with a light meal. Could you bring me a strong drink, please? A large, strong drink. I have a feeling I'm going to need it.
She looks at you, and she kind of seductively smiles. And she kind of looks you up and down as you sit there, just trying to make out your form. And she goes, all sweetness, we can do strong drinks. Strong drinks for a strong Valdros, is it?
Keen eye.
I can tell you don't want to make a scene. And she reaches back and she pulls out her own little flask she carries on you. She goes, to the Valdros. And she cheers you because of that story earlier. She's trying to keep it low profile because she knows what you're going through. Okay?
He's going to smile and nod.
Okay. As she puts that back, you go over and Azara is just grinning and looking at you. She's just smiling and looking at you with like big puppy dog eyes. Did I see something happen just now? Did I actually see you? I'm not drinking. I know this is not the effect this should be having on me, but I could have swore I just saw you being flirtatious, maybe?
It's the shadow of the hood. It makes things look odd.
Finn chuckles and he goes, the shadow of the hood, eh? Smiles. He goes, I'll stick with the lighter wines that you ordered, thank you. We don't want them to go to waste, do we? And he chuckles. As everyone's sitting there, is there any conversation anyone wants to have at the table? And for the next, we're going to say you guys are good here for a good 45 minutes. Just kind of hanging out. And this is a good opportunity for you guys to ask them questions. I can ask you questions, or we can just move forward and see when Lydia shows up, or if she even does. So this is all upon this. Tell you what, let's do this. It's almost 9. I'm going to pause this, get another coffee. Do think about what you want to do when we come back. Who you want to talk to. What you might want to say to him moving forward. Okay? All those kind of things. All right? Is that fair for everybody? Because I know sometimes it's you're like, well, I don't know right now, Brian. Damn it, I don't know. So I want to make sure to give you guys the option here. Let me get ready to pause this, as I always have to do. Anybody got anything before we go to a break? No? Okay, I'll get ready to hit pause recording. Pause recording, and did it work? Are we live? Is it recording still? Yeah, it is.
It has said recording in progress.
Woo! Well, the thing is, that's on Zoom, right? But I'm also doing the battle map in OBS, and I have to look down and see it. It always says stop recording there when I pause it. I have to look down and make sure that the recording timer is moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, what right? So it's all good. When I have the battle map up, it's real important. Like if we don't do any battle tonight, I can just put a slideshow in there of this one. I don't really have to record that. I already have that made. So, you know, it's kind of like that. So, now that we've talked about everything else on break other than what we probably should have been, because we're all just big children here, what is everyone doing for the next 45 minutes? Explore the fucking space, guys. Like, what are you all thinking?
Against his better judgment.
Yeah. You're drinking, I know that.
Rook is going to look at his aura. And he's going to open up an old wound, but he feels like it needs to be set.
I'm interested. Go ahead.
And he's going to put both of his hands up on the table and look at his aura. Look at his aura. I do want to apologize for the danger I brought upon you and your family. It was not my intentions.
She looks at you, and she just has kind of a blank expression on her face, like she's looking at you, but she's also having a flashback. And she blinks, and it kind of takes her out of it. And then she puts on a smile again, the same kind of smile that you've seen her put on before. And it worries you a little bit because you don't know if it's acting or if it's really her. You've really seen her put on a fake facade for some people over the last 48 hours. And this is, you don't know if this is truth or her being polite. You know, Insight will fix it if you want, but I'm just saying. When you say that, she goes back to you. She goes, well, what matters is the direction we move forward from here. She goes, and then worry comes across her face. She goes, and that we are addressing these attackers that have come after myself and my family, and that they stay safe. She looks in the distance. She goes, that they remain with us. And that's a weird thing, because that's something you would never think you would have to say about someone's family. And from the revelation that we caught about that tome and its abilities, and the fact that their actual existence rests in the pages of that thing, imagine the stress on her. Imagine that, you know. And it's showing when she does this just now. You can see those colors. Hey, Bug, would you? Thank you. Sit there. I'm in the middle of this. Will you shut that door for me, please?
Yeah, there's carpet in this.
I'm right in the middle of this, but we can talk about it in a little bit. Thank you very much. Okay. So, but she politely finishes and says, I know you are sorry, and I am sorry that you are caught up into this mess. Was it not for Hector's actions, there would have been no bounty, and if there would have never been any bounty, you would have never been betrayed. We have both been insulted in this, Rook. And she looks at Finn, and she looks at Arson and you, and she goes, and now we can both mend this together. Yes?
I can't say the same for your family, but I can promise you that I will make sure that you stay safe, so that you may see to their protection as well.
Finn looks across at you and nods, and he taps his glass on the table and takes a drink with you. Arson, do you have anything to add in this moment, or are you just the brooding silent guy again?
If anything, he has no clue. He probably has zero clue what is even being said because he is focused on his encounter with the owner and like probably like even like bouncing his leg of like what and like it's like what's taking so long for this to even get the reaction.
Let's play on that. You hear in the distance muffled words. And as you are holding a drink, did you order a drink, by the way, Arson?
Yeah, he would have ordered something a little less strong than Rook.
Okay. As your hands are around your mug, up on the top of the table, you're thinking back. And I hate to be over dramatic with your character, but by God, he's a dramatic fucking guy, right? You're thinking about this image of this warrior, this knight, this black-faced image that reached up out of your depths of your regrets when you were in the Netherfall. And the shape of his face. And the reaching out in the memory of stabbing the blade in his chest. And all of a sudden you kind of wince. And you're remembering looking up at skies that are just nothing but black and gray and lifeless and seeing this large shadow like two size of two whales just floating above the sky in the shape of this spectral like dragon-like form calling out to you in a female voice. Calling out to you, searching for you as you hide from tree to tree, as you lay and shake in fear. And then the muffled voice starts to become a little bit more and more present to you. You hear, Artisan? Artisan? And you come to, and you kind of shake, and you look down, and Azara has reached across the table and has your hands in hers, wrapped around your mug. And she's kind of looking down, and she kind of grins and looks up to you. She goes, everything okay? What are you doing?
He would like shake his head and be like he would be like just a bad daydream.
I'm going to do an insight check. You're rolling for Zara, Jeremy. Roll me a 1d20 and a 1d8. We discussed this earlier.
Eight.
She looks at you, and just when you think that you're just saying the most basic thing you could would just alleviate this issue, she gives you a long look. She doesn't let go of your hands for a minute. And you kind of hold your breath and wondering what she's going to say. It's not just a daydream, and you know it. It's something that happened to you, and you don't know how much longer you can keep telling these people that. You don't know how much longer you'll be welcome at their table. And you worry that you're so stuck in the past that you're going to have a hard time moving forward. And just as you expect her to say any of those things to you, things that you've told yourself over these last couple of days, time and time again, you hear the very quaint, happy voice of Azara, a big smile, as she looks down and she winks at you, and she grins. And she goes, "That's okay. We've all had bad days too. Let's try to have a better one today, huh?" And she gives your
He
hand
would.
a shake, and she lets go. Go ahead.
He will smile and say, "All right, I'll try."
As you smile, she reaches up real quick and strokes the underneath of your chin with her thumb. She goes, "That it is." And she smiles. And she takes a drink of her water. As you all hang out there, you see Finn looking around, trying to size up maybe where this Lydia is coming from, right? And he's looking at people, he's looking at waitresses, and he's kind of nodding to himself, and he seems to be humming a tune. And just from the base of it, it sounds like he has pretty decent range. Like just for humming, just for elven humming, it's melodic. It's interesting. You're just getting enough of it where you can start to discern a song, but you can't really quite make it out. And he's doing this, and he's looking around. And Azara says, "Finn, don't worry. She's coming here to meet us. We don't have to fight today. This is a good thing." With that, the waitress comes back over to the table. And she, let's say, how much of this cheese and bread did you guys tear into so far? You want to say it's fucking gone and you need more, or what are you thinking?
I'd say in conversation, he's probably grabbed a piece here and there.
Okay.
Probably not paying attention at all to how much he's actually had.
Okay. As she comes back over, she looks at you all, and she smiles, but she looks a little nervous. And she says, "There's a message for you, sweetie. And a complimentary round of drinks from one of our patrons." And she looks over her shoulder and she gives a nod. And you guys look into the distance. Sitting at one of the bars, there's several different little mini bars in this place. One is for mead, one is for wine, one is for ale. There's all different kinds of like sponsorship like booths set up in this place. There's not one real long bar, but there's like 4 or 5 mini ones that all seem to have their own cask of something that they're giving out to people. It has these large brass tubes in the background of it, and part of the process goes on this same floor. You know how neat it is to be in like a brewery where you can actually see the devices that are being used to make the stuff? This place does that in elegant form. It almost is like fancy steampunk kind of brewing going on in this place, but it's all done of beautifully polished bronze and steel and handcrafted woods for the taps and stuff like that. That makes this all very elegant. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. I hope you're getting the same picture I am, because I love this fucking place. Okay. As you look over, Azara gasps out loud. And what you guys see, sitting at a bar, over to the side, and the one that has the wine, is an attractively figured female that seems to look very similar to the way Azara did when she revealed her true self to you all. But this woman over here, whereas Azara is young and inexperienced and awkward, that's not what you're looking at over here. Okay? This woman is dressed in, the best way I could describe it is she has a commoner's robe tied tightly to her of black and gold, representing the city's colors, but almost in a sarcastic kind of way. And can everybody see me okay? Because I see there's some lag. Is everybody still with me? Okay. But she has roguish like leathers bound to her tightly that are form-fitting. This woman looks elegant and deadly in equal parts. She has a large hood that has the large black material with the gold fringe along the edge that hangs well over her shoulders, revealing quite a bit of her collarbone and going down quite a bit to her chest. You can see tattoos and rune markings right above where her chest would start if this thing hung any lower. Okay? And she is full on flaunting what she is here. But there's a little something different here. There's a little bit of extra lightness to this. She doesn't look as naturally dark and foreboding as Azara, as hard as that is to say, looked when she showed you her true form. This is a little bit lighter. These horns are more of a pearl, like shadow-like pearl consistency. You can see different hues in them as they twist up and go backwards and then come to little rounded out points that go slightly up at the end that hang off the back of her head. Her hair is white, somewhat like Azara's, but it's all pulled back into one tight braid and shaved all along the sides like a warrior's braid that pulls down and hangs down her back. It's thrown over her right shoulder as she plays with it flirtatiously. Okay? Black leather wrapped gloves go up to her elbows with the fingers cut out as she runs her finger along the edge of a wine bottle on the other side as she plays with her hair casually, and she looks across at you and she picks up the wine bottle and she holds it and points at Azara from the other side, tilts it, and then takes a drink and sits it down. She throws the braid back over her shoulder, somewhat flirtatiously, and turns back over and finishes up. She's eating something at the bar, but you're not sure exactly what it is. You guys look back over to Azara, and her mouth is agape. It's like she doesn't even remember the letter was there in front of her. She's kind of frozen. What's everyone doing? Don't
We're
run towards
over the table. Are you all right, Azara?
Roll a persuasion check.
That's a natural 20, my friend.
That's awesome. I'll give you this.
24.
That's awesome. Perfect timing. As you do that, she snaps to, and she looks at you, and she looks down at the paper, and she looks back up at you with a weak grin, and she takes it, and she keeps looking at you, Rook, and then she looks over at Finn, and Finn's nodding. Go on then. I'm certain it's from her. And she picks it up, and she begins to look at it. And you can see her lips move ever so softly as she's reading through the words. And you see a smile start to form on her face, but one of wonderment. And she looks over at the two of you, Arson and Rook. she says, I know we spoke earlier about not separating the group, but, she has asked for me to follow her to a private booth upstairs. And she has said that she knows we're nervous, and that Finn may come with me. And she looks at Finn, and Finn looks at the rest of us. And he looks over at Arson, and he looks at you, Jeremy. And he says, I won't let any harm come to her. And if I need you, I'll call.
Please do. I'll be listening.
He takes another sip of his wine and sits it down, and he looks at her, and he pushes his chair out. And he holds his hand out to her. She looks up at him nervously, and she slips her hand into Finn's. And she nods and kind of puts on that fake smile. And she shakes out her hair, and she stands up, and he takes her and picks her up out of the chair. And he puts his hand back down to his blade, and he looks over in that direction. And this Lydia character has already gotten up, and she's carrying a bottle, and she's walking up the stairway up to a private booth up top. Okay? When that happens, the barmaiden is still kind of there watching all this go on, right? And she looks down, she goes, and there's one more. This one's for someone by your description. And she looks at you, Rook, and she puts it down. I want you to inspect this and see if you can tell what it is. There's a chance you could, because of where you've been and what you've done. I just want to see your roll as you give this a glance.
What am I, perception?
Yep. Whatever you want. Why don't you tell me what it would be, and I'll see if you can sell it to me, buddy. I love doing this because I see your wheels turns like, how can I make dex into this? How can I do strength into this? You know, so.
Well, so my original thought would be to use perception, because obviously it's my highest stat. But perception is to notice things around you, not to necessarily study something. So I don't think perception would apply to this. Investigation, maybe. Because I'm kind of peering over it and checking, looking at the color, trying to see if it rings any bells.
Right. This is going to be about something that you've seen in the past and referencing it here again. So this is like almost like a history kind of thing.
Yep. I would say history would probably be the best way to go about it.
Now in our game, moving forward, we're going to have some different stats that's going to cover this. Which
16?
you know very well. What was it?
16.
16.
For history.
This is a bounty. This has the Darkwood Stalkers of Hamelsbyre signature on it. Okay? Or the Darkwood Wardens or Stalkers of Hamelsbyre, however you want to put that. But it has that symbol of the wilted tree with the bow and arrow in the foreground of it. And the thorns coming off that tree as it looks black. Okay? All that is within the outside shape of a skull. So if you want to write that down, that is one of the sigils and markers for the Darkwood Huntsman of Hamelsbyre. Okay? The outline of a skull, wilted thorn tree with a bow and arrow in the foreground of it. All right? As you open it up, it is handwritten elegantly. And it explains a dire situation. It's like, I was made aware that you were going to be frequenting my establishment today, and I wanted to get a look at you all in person. It is no coincidence that we were telling the tale that we did today, friend. For I have known you were going to show up here since short moments ago. Okay. He says, my name is Enel, E-N-E-L. What's the last name? Brookwater. And I am the co-owner of the Fighting Spirits Winery and Meadery. And I desperately need your help.
What'd you say that last name was?
Brookwater. His name is Enel, E-N-E-L, Enel Brookwater. He says, we have a glen. And it's very pricey. Because we keep it in summertime conditions year-round through the use of magics in archaic writings. Okay? We keep it at a certain temperature. It is very controlled. We used to do it upon the roof of our establishment, but our business outgrew the size of our structure and we had to find other means. But what it produces is a far greater substance than any other known to man. Even some say to be beyond the essence of life itself. He goes, a particular spirit that we make from a very rare and exotically grown mushroom that only grows and sprouts on particular times of the year in these conditions that we have kept arcanely year long. Unseasonably weather also has brought something else to our glen. There is a monstrosity of an undisclosed type that has ran many of our workers and our farmers from this glen. It is said to have been eating onto these mushrooms and have been drawn there because of the stable conditions, so it could survive through the winter months, as the creature is said to be plant-based of some kind. Okay. I would be willing to pay 15,000 singet for the destruction and the elimination of these creatures and proof that it has happened and retrieval of whatever substance was not destroyed by them in the process. If you so choose to accept this, just let me know, and I will have a wagon and our own personal Brookwater elite workers take you to said location, as it is only a short ride just outside the main glen and fields of New Gimdar's, the surrounding forest line of New Gimdar. Okay. Once again, we need this with haste, as the festival has drained our supplies almost to their breaking point, and we need these mushrooms, and we need to continue this process as soon as possible. Coming to you next are some samples of this delectable substance. Okay. We call it the Fighting Spirit, named after our bar, our meadery and winery, our establishment. Okay. And with that, you see she pulls out 4 cups, but now the 2 of you aren't there. Okay. But she pulls out a bottle from the back of her, and on the side of the bottle is that image that hangs above the door of this place of that halfling falling back on a sword and holding it up, despite a huge giant's foot coming down as if it's getting ready to crush the halfling, but the sword's going to go right through its toe at the process. And that is right on the front label. It says Brookwater's Fighting Spirit on the label. She pours out the substance. It is thinner than you would have thought. You would have thought maybe this had been a syrupy, over-the-top kind of thing. When they pour this stuff out, you swear to God, the way this stuff captures the light, and there's actual glimmer and sparkles in this shit. It looks like a running waterfall, that captures light like diamonds do or something like that. It's extremely strange. And there's a smell that comes from it that is very, very, very heavy of honey and coriander. But there's a funk that you can't quite place. Okay? And as it's poured in these cups, I want you both to roll me a Constitution saving throw.
Oh, I think I got this.
Mm-mm.
25.
What about you, Arson?
I got a 6.
Okay.
Makes sense.
You literally see Arson drool. It literally comes out between his teeth, and he drools on the table and catches himself and kind of gruffly wipes it off his chin. She takes out a large piece of dried up mushroom. It looks like it's a dark amber orange color. It may have been red when it was fresh, in a grinder. Okay. She takes out a rose petal and lays on the top of the drink. And this rose petal has like a pink and yellow hue to it, but it is shaped like a rose petal actually. And she grinds part of this mushroom on top of that petal. And it floats there on top. She goes, enjoy. And she turns and walks away. Roll me a perception check, Jeremy. The only reason I do this is because you've been keeping an eye out a lot. Now I want to give you credit for that. What'd you get?
Dirty 20.
With a dirty 20, as you look around, you look up in the top balcony, and you realize it's been a while since you have heard this large, Jack Black looking, elaborate person. It seems to be some kind of higher up in this place with the red vest on and the long pulled back, fancily tied hair. And he's up at the balcony above, leaning over the edge, staring right at you with a grin on his face. It's Jack Black going like just grinning and looking down at you. And he looks at you and he points. And he goes, eh? What are we thinking? And you realize the note's from him. He must be the owner of this place, or at least partial owner of it, the person that's in the letter. Okay? And he's watching you, and he's like, his eyes are open, his mouth is open, like he's getting ready to feed a child, and he's going through the motions. He's wanting you to drink this to see what you think. He's like going, Jeremy, he's like...
Well, I'm definitely going to try it.
Okay. Go ahead, man. Arson, you following suit, or are you waiting to see if he turns into a pig? What are you doing?
From the looks of it, he's going to drink it because he's not really expecting anything bad to come happening.
Okay. When you drink this, okay, I don't have the words to really do this justice. I've told you about the way it smells. But I will say this to you. When you drink this and the way it warms your chest, it is alcoholic. It is poetry in a bottle, guys. This rose petal gives off this hoppy-like aroma and flavor to this stuff. And this is almost like a barley wine. Okay? Or a brandy wine, kind of like feel. It has these really over-the-top notes, but it's a little bit stickier and not quite as crisp and dry as a wine would be. This is some kind of in between of an ale and a wine. This is something different. And my God, does it work. The actual earthiness and the fragrance and funk from the fungus that they have scraped over top of this, mixed with that rose petal, gives it this sweet perfume kind of glaze on the top of the drink. And as you put that down, you almost think, mushrooms in this, they dissolve immediately. You don't even, you can see they're there. The second you drink this down, it's like gold leaf and like Goldschlager. It just disintegrates when it touches your tongue. And it's nothing but angels are singing, guys. I'm telling you. And when you put this stuff down, you literally find yourself like trying to remember the last time you've ever had anything this good, or if this is even really happening. Okay, this stuff is real go. And he's up there at the top looking at you like, yeah, yeah, I knew I could count on you. He turns around and walks past Lydia, that is now being escorted by Finn upstairs, and they go into a booth, and they draw up the blue velvet curtains, and they're in there having a talk. So here's what I will present to you two. You've been just given this bounty. Rook, explain to Arson what's going on and see if this is something that you want to do.
Quick 20-minute adventure. In and out. What do you say?
I'm down. My little payback to the owner can wait. Can wait.
It'll be simple enough. Some kind of monstrosity parading around in the garden, destroying the very setting that they grow these mushrooms in for this wine. I don't know about you, but it'd be quite the shame to see this cease to exist because of some creatures.
Fair.
Well, enough. I see no other reason why not to, especially if we get to enjoy it more.
Fair enough.
Okay. So, we can do this. It's 10 o'clock. Okay? We can begin this, and I can have you two start this thing and see what we get into. Or I can shorten up their meeting up there, and I can kind of text Bella and Danny and tell them what all came of that conversation upstairs. And we can take off from that starting point at the beginning of our next session. I'm good with either one. What would you all like to do? I mean, it's Monday morning. It's going to be a long morning. You know what I mean? It's all good. And it's also about how much expedience. Do you have a whole bunch of stuff you want to collect before you go? Because if that happens, we probably wouldn't get to a battle tonight. But, you know, you may want to spend the next episode getting some background and finding out from other farmers and other workers that are in this place, like, what did they see there? Were there any witnesses? You can turn this into whatever you would like to. If you guys want to go get in a fucking fight and have some fun, we can do it. If you want to spend some time investigating tonight or wait till next week to do it, we can do that too. It's all up to you all. I'm good with whatever.
I would like to try to get the other two involved. That way we can kind of do this together.
I'm with you completely. How about you, Colby? You good?
Yeah, at this point, Arson's just going with the group because he's down. Because for him, it's just a waiting game now.
Yeah, true. Okay, so here's what we'll do. Now, one of the reasons why I kind of designed this way, too, this works in our favor in two ways. Okay? If Danny or Bella aren't able to join in for the next one, I can say that their conversation with Lydia takes them in a different direction temporarily, and you two can go do this, and we'll just kick it off from the beginning of the next one. This is a win-win. If they are able to get them back in the next game, we're able to have them. Well, then Lydia's meeting with them was short and sweet, and they got what they needed to, and they'll come downstairs and join you. So now we have a way to do this. Okay? It just took a little bit of prepping to go there. Because I don't want to just be like, hey, all of a sudden there's a bounty. You guys want to go? Let's go. That doesn't work the way that we play. Now, if you ever want to do that sometime, and you don't want all the theatrics and shit, once you understand some things about your character and we've got past the early mystique of new characters, we'll jump right into what the fuck ever you want to do. We can take the express train to fucking D20 town. Okay? It's no problem. But I'm just wanting to give you guys a little bit of context to get to know your characters before we start passing through and skipping all the cut scenes in the game. Just mashing the button. You know what I'm saying? So, is that fair for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So before I shut this down for the night, does anyone else have anything or any questions before we call it quits?
I think I'm good, bud.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm all good.
Colby?
Yeah.
So we'll have our normal little bullshit session when we're done here, of course, because we just can't get enough of each other. And we'll do that. But until next Sunday, or whichever Sunday we choose to do this, I'm Brian Kimes, thanking you guys again for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. And we'll see you next time.